Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Quick Break Games. So after the release of 3 LEGO Star Wars games, we had LEGO Star Wars the video game, the original trilogy, and then the complete saga. Developer TT Games continued under the Lucasfilm brand with the release of LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventures in 2008. Originally teased in LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, this game adapted the original Indiana Jones film trilogy of Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Temple of Doom, and The Last Crusade into LEGO form. This game was likely released at this time in order to promote the 4th indie film, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, despite the game not including that film in any capacity. But how does it work when TT Games takes their formula that they used with their LEGO Star Wars games and apply it to a LEGO Indiana Jones game? Let's find out as we do a complete analysis and retrospective of LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventures. Now, if you're a fan of the Indiana Jones films, you'll feel right at home as the classic theme song plays when you boot up the game to the main menu. When starting a new game, you'll jump straight into a LEGO cutscene version of the opening scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. You aren't thrown into a hub world straight away like the prior LEGO Star Wars games. But the cutscenes here are just as good as they were in those ones. They take the movie scenes, tone them down for kids 10 and up, and add that classic LEGO game humor. But after the initial cutscene, you're thrown straight into gameplay in the first level, which is called the Lost Temple. Here you play as Indiana Jones himself, or Satipo. Much like the other games, LEGO Indiana Jones supports drop-in, drop-out co-op, or of course you can play solo. And this all works exactly the same as before, and it's as awesome as always. You're also introduced to several new gameplay mechanics right off the bat. Indiana Jones has a whip which can be used to swing across gaps, provided there's one of these wooden pallets on the ground. It works in a similar fashion to grapple hook points in the LEGO Star Wars games. Indy's whip can also be used in combat to tie up enemies or pick up objects. In terms of traversal, there's these new ropes or vines that you can swing from. Additionally, Satipo is a shovel character who can be used to dig up objects buried in the ground. These objects can then be picked up and carried to these green plates on the ground in order to solve puzzles. I really love how this opening level has these orange pads that when stepped on, activate spears or other traps to harm you. It really fits the vibe of this part of the movie. Pretty much all of the older mechanics from LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga are back too. There's the pushable LEGO objects across checkered floors, rideable vehicles, in this case a boat that only characters with a shovel can row, and more. Eventually you'll reach this classic boulder chase scene. They did a great job at reimagining this scene for a LEGO game as you run towards the camera. It's very similar to Crash Bandicoot, which very likely got it from this movie. The cutscene after you escape from the boulder is pretty funny and has a Star Wars C-3PO reference in there. At the end of the level, you'll have access to Jock, who is a wrench character. These guys can repair broken or smoking LEGO objects, like when you repair the propeller on this plane. But once that's done, you escape, and that wraps up level 1. Once again, you have the results screen at the end of every level. This shows your progress on the stud bar or stud meter. Collecting studs in a level fills the meter, and if you fill it up all the way, you're considered a true adventurer this time around. Free play mode returns after you complete a level in story mode. In free play, you can play as any unlocked character and hunt down all 10 artifacts hidden in each level. Artifacts are essentially mini-kits, but with a nice treasure chest redesign. The red power brick in each level returns in the form of red parcels. These work slightly differently, where you need to find the parcel in a level and carry it to the nearby red mailbox. So they sorta added an extra step to the mix. Doing this will unlock the ability to buy various extras, but more on that later. If you need help finding these artifacts or parcels, I have super fast guides for all 18 levels here on the channel. Definitely check them out. But anyway, that's the results screen, and that's the first level. From here you can go to Barnett College, which is going to allow you to skip to another film if you'd like. But for now, let's continue the story with the second level of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Into the Mountains. This level has you playing as Indiana Jones and Marion Ravenwood in Nepal. As a female character, Marion has the ability to jump higher than male characters to reach new areas. This definitely comes in handy. This level essentially starts off with a boss fight against Arnold Tote, I think is how you say his name. I like how in this boss fight you have to use the new mechanic of being able to carry objects. You need to pick up chairs or bottles and throw them at him. This ability is also used later in the level when you need to pick up torches to light dynamite on fire, or when you pick up enemy weapons like the bazooka to destroy silver LEGO objects. In terms of traversal gameplay mechanics, this game introduces hanging from ledges. When you see a horizontal LEGO bar, you can grab onto it and move across the gaps or reach higher up areas. Another small new feature are these keys that you can rotate to unlock doors. It's basically an alternate version of the levers which we saw in the LEGO Star Wars games. But anyway, Indy and Marion escape Nepal and travel to Egypt, where the next level, City of Danger, takes place. We have yet another new mechanic shown at the start here. This one's not used too often, but I guess we can call it the monkey and banana mechanic. So sometimes there will be monkeys in levels that have an item that you need. Oftentimes it's a key, or in this case, a wrench. You need to find a banana nearby, throw it to the monkey, then he'll give you the wrench in exchange. So even though Indiana Jones is not a character that typically has a wrench, picking one up allows him to repair broken LEGO objects as if he was a wrench character like Jock, for example. The next area is very combat focused, where you fight sworded enemies. You can even wield their swords and use it against them. So I think at this point you can really see how adding the ability to pick up objects greatly opened the door for several new gameplay mechanics. And speaking of the combat in general, it works pretty much like the prior games in the sense that you mash the attack button, but they did add some cool finisher animations to spice things up. Later on in the level, we see that the hat feature from LEGO Star Wars 2 and the Complete Saga returns. After defeating an enemy soldier, we can put on their hat to pose as a soldier and access new areas. And here at the end of the level, we can see that vehicles return as well. Moving on to the next level, the Well of Souls has us searching for the Ark of the Covenant, where Sala, who is a Shovel class character, is our player 2 this time around. You'll notice loads of red LEGO snakes in this one, which is used for the new Phobias feature. Of course, Indiana Jones is afraid of snakes, so he's scared and can't do much when he gets near them. That's where Sala comes in to navigate around them. The Well of Souls is very puzzle focused, as you use all the different gameplay systems to solve them and progress through each room. We eventually get to the Ark, but of course Sala and the Ark get captured, leaving us back with Marion for the remainder of the level. Again, there's a lot of puzzle solving and platforming here. There's even a giant snake boss fight where you need to use torches against it. That's gotta be Indy's worst nightmare. After escaping the tomb, we continue with the next level, Pursuing the Ark. This level largely takes place around the Nazi dig site. I'd say this one has a good mix of combat and puzzle solving, making it a pretty balanced level, and probably one of the better levels in the entire game. Towards the end, you get a boss fight with the bald boxer dude. To hurt him, you need to use a nearby anvil and have him punch it. Do that 3 times and you'll defeat him. There's even a cutscene where he gets his head chopped off by a plane's propeller. Pretty brutal, but they give it the humorous LEGO game tone, of course. But the level's not over yet, though. There's a unique on-rails section where you're jumping between all these different cargo trucks, trying to get to the one with the Ark. It's a really fun section. And that brings us to the last level of Raiders, which is called Opening the Ark. This one starts off where we play as Indiana Jones disguised as a Nazi rescuing Marion. It's a pretty cool area centered around a German U-boat. Ultimately, our heroes get captured, and that brings us to the final battle area against Belloc. This fight has you solving several different puzzles to reach and damage him, and then he moves to a different area and you repeat the process. Once he's defeated, you get recaptured, Belloc opens the Ark, and you get a silly LEGO game version of the brutal scene where Belloc gets his face melted off by the Ark. It's obviously much more family friendly here, but that wraps up Raiders of the Lost Ark. Okay, so now that we've finished the first movie, I think now would be a good time to talk about Barnett College. Barnett College acts as this game's hub world, very similar to the Mos Eisley Cantina and Dexter's Diner from the prior LEGO Star Wars games. There's not necessarily a good central location that represents the Indiana Jones films, so I think TT Games did a good job selecting the college Indy teaches at to be the game's hub. In the main room, we have 3 maps against the back wall. Each map represents a film in the original Indiana Jones trilogy. It definitely gives us that treasure hunter vibe, which I like. You walk up to the map, and from there you can select one of the 6 levels that make up each movie. This is a slightly less time-consuming way of replaying levels, as in the previous games you had to walk into entirely different rooms for each movie, and then walk through different doors for each level. Now levels are much easier to select, and each movie is just a couple steps away. Like before, you can replay the story mode with the predetermined characters and cutscenes, or play free play where you can play as any unlocked character to collect any artifacts or red parcels that you've missed. You may notice that challenge mode from LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, where you needed to collect those blue mini-kits within a time limit, has been completely removed in this game. And I'd say most players probably don't miss it. If we walk towards the camera, we'll find a hallway with several different doors on the left and right sides. The first door on the left leads us to the library. But instead of checking out books, we can buy characters. Characters are presented in a horizontal list where we can use our studs to buy characters that we've encountered in the story so far. If you see a grayed out character, that typically means you need to keep playing the story. Moving back into the hallway, the first path on the right leads us to Barnett College's outdoor courtyard. This area acts as a pathway to the art room. The art room is where the create a character feature returns. You can create your own custom minifigure using pieces from the characters that you've unlocked so far. It's always good to see this feature return, even though personally I've never really used it too much. But anyway, back in the hallway, the second door on the left leads us to the classroom. On the chalkboard, we can type in 6 character cheat codes. I don't recommend using cheats, but if you're interested, you can look codes up online and type them in here. I do think it's pretty clever that they used a chalkboard for this. Moving directly across the hall, we have the mail room. Remember those red parcels that are found in every level? Well, after you mail off one of those parcels found in each level, the extra associated with it will become available to buy here in the mail room. Like in the last games, there are several extras available from the start of the game without red parcels, but if you want the good ones, you'll need to find them and purchase them here. There's some new stuff, but it's mostly the same extras that we've seen before. The score multiplier extras have been renamed to treasure, which I think is a nice touch, but you also find useful things like invincibility, regenerating hearts, fast build, etc. Now if you do want a deeper look at every extra in this game, I have a video on them linked below in the description. Now the last door on the left leads us to Barnett College's theater. This is where you can rewatch any cutscenes that you've first already seen by playing through the main story. So if you're interested in seeing those again, the theater is the room for you. The last room in the hallway is Indy's office. You'll notice several puzzles that require a bunch of different character abilities here. We'll talk about this later on in the video. And if you continue walking towards the camera, you'll reach the entrance to the college, but there's nothing really much else to see here. Overall, Barnett College takes the shop that was found in Dexter's Diner and Mos Eisley Cantina and kind of separates each part of that shop into different rooms throughout the college. It's a little less convenient, but I think it works well in this instance since kind of each room has its own purpose. But anyway, if we walk back towards the maps, there is an upstairs with an additional room. But for now, let's jump back into talking about the remaining 12 levels of the game. Let's start with the second film, the Temple of Doom. So Shanghai Showdown is the first Temple of Doom level. As the name suggests, this takes place in Shanghai, where Indy gets drugged by a crime boss. This actually factors into the gameplay, as Indy has a unique sort of wobbly, stumbling, walking animation when he's on this drug. The goal is to get the antidote from the henchman. We're also assisted by a new character, Willie, who has the new ability to scream, breaking glass objects. Of course, she's known for screaming all the time in the movie, so it's pretty hilarious how they incorporated that into a useful gameplay ability. Once Indy is cured, you escape the nightclub and are given a third character, Short Round. And if you couldn't tell by his name, he is a short LEGO minifigure allowing you to access small character hatches, something that you should be familiar with if you've played any of the TT Games LEGO Star Wars games. Using these 3 character abilities, you ultimately make your escape on a plane, but of course the plane crashes, leaving them stranded in the Himalayas. Indy meets up with the local villagers, and this brings us to the second level of Temple of Doom, Pancot Secrets. So the basis of this level is essentially the journey and arrival to the Pancot Palace. Right off the bat, we get to ride elephants. They allow us to traverse mud, and they can even pick up objects with their trunk, which kind of comes in handy. On the journey to the palace, we also see that Willie has a phobia towards spiders, so be sure to keep her away from those. At the palace, we start some combat with the thuggy enemies as we discover their underground operations. In the level-ending cutscene, we do see the main villain of the movie, Mola Ram, sacrificing a village child. I say sacrificing with air quotes since this is a LEGO game, so the villager comes back up, still alive, after being thrown into the fire pit. I guess he just feels a little bit hot. The next level is the Temple of Cali. This one has Indiana Jones and Short Round as our playable characters as they traverse through the thuggy caves to rescue Willie. This is another solid level with lots of puzzle elements and platforming. When you reach the room where they do the sacrifices, there's actually a boss fight against Chatter Lull, I think is his name, who I guess is a thuggy henchman. I don't remember him in the movie, to be honest, but this fight is kind of interesting because you need to take out some of the enemies and put their thuggy turban on, which will then essentially give you the ability to use these thuggy statues. The statues will cause fire or lava to come up from the vent that the boss is standing on, which will damage him. It's a cool mechanic for a boss fight. It's funny when he's defeated, his body just kind of explodes in the cutscene. Pretty brutal, but with Willie rescued, we're on to the next level. And this one is called Free the Slaves, a level name I'm not sure that they would use if they made this game today, based on some changes they made to a certain LEGO set. But anyways, the level starts off with repairing a minecart and having to go down the track to open up the next area. This one has a pretty unique puzzle where you need to find a LEGO object to repair an elevator, but you need to get the object across several lava gaps. Indiana Jones can use his whip to grab the object and pull it over gaps. It's very resourceful. Anyways, as you play through the level, you'll free the slaves, then there's a boss fight with the thuggy slaver driver. Here you get to use dynamite to rescue Short Round and defeat the boss. With everyone rescued, now it's time to escape with the next level, Escape the Mines. There's a brief section at the beginning where you have some combat, then do some puzzle solving to build up a minecart. Once those are built, the rest of the level is sort of a on-rails vehicle level where you're riding the minecarts through a looping track. You can lean left or right as well as attack. The goal is to hit certain switches in order to change the tracks, which then gets you off the infinite loop, and you progress the level. This is definitely a fun level that switches up the typical LEGO game gameplay that we've had so far. Now that brings us to the final Temple of Doom level, Battle on the Bridge. This level starts off with a bang as you have to run away from the water towards the camera. It's very similar to the boulder chase from the first level of Raiders. If you fail to outrun the water, it still progresses you to the next part of the level, so really there's no way to lose on that section. The bulk of this level is progressing up the waterfall and across the mountains to reach Molo Ram. There's a lot of good puzzle solving and platforming in this one. It's probably one of my favorite levels in the entire game. But after all that, you get to the famous bridge scene. You'll have to fight a bunch of thuggy henchmen, but throughout the boss fight, Molo Ram will jump onto the bridge as well. You need to wait for him to basically do a forced choke on you, switch to another character, and have that character attack him. It's a very similar concept to a lot of the lightsaber battles in the previous LEGO Star Wars games. Throughout the fight, you also need to pick up the regular enemies' swords to throw and cut the four corners of the bridge. Rinse and repeat, and you'll defeat Molo Ram as he becomes one with the alligators below. But that's all for Temple of Doom. Let's go ahead and continue with the final film in this game, The Last Crusade. Indiana Jones' father gets captured, so it's time to find him in the first Last Crusade level, The Hunt for Sir Richard. This is a pretty beefy level and probably in the top 5 best in the entire game. Here we get to play as Indiana Jones in his professor attire, and we also get to play as Dr. Marcus Brody and Elsa. Elsa is obviously a woman, so she can do the high jumps, but she also has a little blue book. Characters with the blue book can solve hieroglyphic wall puzzles, which come in handy to progress levels, and of course for some mini-kit artifacts. Dr. Marcus Brody has this ability too. This level starts out pretty open outside in Venice, then you enter a library and solve a fairly lengthy puzzle there, which leads you underground in some catacombs, and then the last area is a boat vehicle section, with a boss fight against Kazim. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to this level, with lots of variety, which I love. For the boss fight, you have to ram into his boat with your boat, as well as beat him up on foot. Once you defeat him, that ends the level. Next up is Castle Rescue. This takes place at Castle Brunwald, where we play as Indy and Elsa to try and rescue Indy's father, Henry Jones. There are suits of armor everywhere and cool wall paintings. I think the castle makes for a really great setting for a level. And speaking of great settings, the fiery room where Indy and Henry get trapped is featured here as well. You have to cleverly make your way around the fire and escape through the secret fireplace door. Like Elsa, Henry Jones has one of those blue books, so he can help out with those wall puzzles as well. And then the rest of the level takes place on the rooftops of the castle as you escape the Nazi forces. Okay, let's move on to the third Last Crusade level, Motorcycle Escape. You begin this one at a garage where you need to build yourselves a couple of motorcycles. Now you're going to spend a big chunk of the level on these motorcycles, but I appreciate how this game doesn't have the levels entirely vehicle-based like in the past LEGO games. Vehicles this time around are smartly integrated into the traditional levels. There's even this section where you need to carefully drive in between all these landmines, or else you blow up. The driving stops for a bit once you reach this farm area where you need to do some puzzle solving to find a way to build a bridge. After a bit more driving, the final area goes into absolute chaos as you have to deal with a few bazooka turrets shooting at you along with a bunch of Nazi soldiers on top of that. It's a good change of pace after the quiet farm section from earlier. Now let's talk about Trouble in the Sky. This level takes place as Indy and Henry get caught trying to sneak into a Zeppelin. The level starts off with a boss fight against Colonel Vogel. This fight can be a little annoying since there's all these infinitely respawning enemies harassing you as you try to throw bottles up at the boss. But anyways, after the boss, our heroes escape on a plane and crash land on the surface below. From here, the level transitions into being more puzzle and traversal focused rather than combat, but things do ramp up as you get towards the end of the level where you need to find 3 flocks of birds to distract the Nazi plane above. Enemies are kind of spammed here too, but they fall in different intervals, so it's not a constant thing like the earlier boss fight. Once you find all 3 flocks of birds, the level ends with the plane now off your tail. This leads us to the 5th level of the Last Crusade, Desert Ambush. In this one, we're reunited with Sala from the first movie. The majority of this one revolves around stopping this tank that's going to be constantly firing RPGs at you. Yeah, it's pretty annoying, and a lot of times it's completely undodgeable. But to progress the level, you need to find and build 3 different mines around the battlefield, and the tank will roll right into them. But that doesn't really stop it though, as the tank continues attacking you into the next section, but this time you just have to dodge it the best you can. You can't exactly fight back. The last area of this level is another on-rails segment where you're riding on top of the tank, while enemies flow in from cargo trucks. Every now and then the boss pops up and you gotta damage him. It's a little repetitive, but it is a pretty cool section. Anyways, once you defeat the tank, Indy and Sala reunite with Henry, and the level ends. Now for the final level of the Last Crusade and the entire game, Temple of the Grail. You start out by getting to play as Indy, Brody, Henry, and Sala, so there's a lot of different character abilities to play here. You fight your way into the temple where you get ambushed by the villain, Donovan. The cutscene is pretty funny, as when Henry gets shot, his Lego legs just detach from his body and just start walking around. It's sort of a callback to when Darth Maul was chopped in half in the old Lego Star Wars games. Now after the cutscene, you're left with just Indy and Sala, but Indy gets the blue book, which comes in handy solving all these wall puzzles, because there are a lot of wall puzzles in this level. This part of the level has some really tough platforming sections where you need to dodge instant kill blades of death as you're trying to climb across a wall. I love how they incorporated the invisible bridge from the movie towards the end of this level. Without watching the movie, you'd have no idea that you're supposed to walk across these gaps, but I guess players will figure it out eventually. But after you get past all the puzzles, you have the cutscene where Donovan drinks of the wrong cup and ages himself to death. Then you have to do one final fight against the Ancient Knight, which essentially amounts to just dodging him as you try to find the correct cup. Once you do that, the final cutscene plays, Elsa dies, Henry Jones's legs reattach themselves, and it's happily ever after. But we still have some things to talk about at Barnett College. So back at Barnett College, if we take the stairs and head to the right, we'll reach the artifact room. This is where all 18 artifacts will be displayed, which you unlock by collecting all 10 artifact minikits in each of the 18 levels. But there's more to this room than just looking at those artifacts. If we head back into Indy's office and use all the different character abilities to solve all the puzzles in the room, we'll unlock a key. We can take that key back to the artifact room, and with this diamond in place and all of the artifacts completed, rotating the key will unlock this game's 3 bonus levels. The first one is called Young Indy. And if you've watched Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, you'll probably be familiar with the flashback sequence at the beginning of the film with Kid Indiana Jones. Yeah, that's what this level is based around. You play as young Indy and the Boy Scout. You start out in the caves, then make your way outside and eventually onto this train sequence where you get a mini lion boss fight. It's a decent level, but there is no true adventure or stud bar, artifacts, or red parcel, so it's not exactly that replayable, but free play is offered after you complete the level in story mode if you want to replay it with different characters. The second bonus level is called Ancient City. If you've played LEGO Star Wars 2 or the complete saga, you might have seen the LEGO City or Newtown bonus levels in those games. Now in this game we go from LEGO City to Ancient City. There's not too much to say here. You need to collect 1 million studs, without stud multipliers by the way, by destroying pretty much every last thing in the map. There is a timer, but it's purely just for setting new high scores to see how fast you can do it. You aren't under a time constraint, thankfully. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of these types of levels, but let me know what you think of them in the comments below. Then the third and final bonus level is called Warehouse. This is another 1 million studs level, and this one acts as a teaser for the new 4th Indiana Jones movie at the time, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Luckily, this one is much easier to get 1 million studs, thanks to this target over here on the right side that you can just spam with a rocket launcher. But anyways, that's every level in LEGO Indiana Jones. One thing I do want to mention, since this is a Lucasfilm game, there of course needs to be Star Wars Easter eggs. There are 5 Star Wars characters hidden in 5 of this game's levels. For example, in the second level of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Into the Mountains, you can shoot a bazooka at this cave and reveal Luke Skywalker frozen on Hoth. Now I've made an entire video guide on my channel for this if you want to know the rest, but if you find all 5, you'll unlock Han Solo as a playable character. Pretty cool that Han is playable in LEGO Indiana Jones, and then Indiana Jones was playable in LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. But okay, that is pretty much the entirety of LEGO Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures. This game took the basic gameplay of the prior LEGO Star Wars games and applied it to the original trilogy of Indiana Jones films. And this game had a lot of new gameplay mechanics introduced, the main one being the ability to grab objects. This was pretty innovative as it allowed you to pick up torches to light dynamite, pick up enemy weapons, carry objects to solve puzzles, give characters additional abilities, and so much more. It really switched things up. Many players disliked the vehicle levels in the prior games, so it was great to see how they improved this by incorporating the vehicle gameplay within the regular levels. If you're a fan of Indiana Jones, or even if you're just a fan of LEGO games in general, you definitely need to play LEGO Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up my retrospective and analysis of LEGO Indiana Jones 1, so definitely let me know what you think about this game in the comments below. It's definitely a favorite of mine. I remember playing this back when it came out. I originally had the PSP version, which was kind of cool because the PSP ran the same thing as the console versions for the most part. And it's just really cool how this game essentially has the same classic LEGO Star Wars gameplay, just applied to Indiana Jones. But anyway guys, that's going to do it. Be sure to watch my retrospectives on the first 3 LEGO Star Wars games if you haven't seen those already. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, dislike it if not, subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you guys next time here on Quick Break Games.